Future generations of Americans will be thankful for our efforts to humanely regain control of our borders and thereby preserve the value of one of the most sacred possessions of our people, American citizenship. President Ronald Reagan. Boom.
From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where the men look like men, the women look like women, and the wokesters look like idiots. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Coming up on the Worst People in the Whole Wide World Weekly Update, the city of Chicago parties like it's 1868 by throwing a good old-fashioned seditious insurrection. The Democrats shut down the federal government and then argue amongst themselves about why they shut down the federal government. But first, we check in with our good friends across the pond in the jolly old Islamic Republic of Britainistan, where plans to stick minarets on St. Paul's Cathedral had to be put on hold this week so that the Prime Minister, Sheikh Keirani Jihad Muhammad Jihad al-Starmeri, could wag his finger at those naughty, disobedient Britons and threatened to use his military force, formerly known as the British Army, but recently rebranded as the October 7th Britainistan Martyrs Brigade, to start shooting disobedient citizens in the street if they don't get with the program, and start showing a bit of gratitude for their teen daughters being forcibly culturally enriched by 35-year-old Algerian boat migrants while they are trying to walk to school in the morning. In a speech to the annual conference of the former Labour Party, recently rebranded as Sharia al-Labori, the Prime Minister stated, quote, "Look, cultural enrichment sometimes strikes when you least expect it. It might be hiding in a bush, it might be lurking in an alleyway, it might even be loitering by a playground all day, leering at small children while grabbing its crotch. The point being, if I might paraphrase the sage words of the great American basketball coach Robert Montgomery Knight, if cultural enrichment is inevitable, you might as well just lay back and enjoy it. And besides, if your daughter wasn't looking to get culturally enriched, she wouldn't have been walking around in that sexy English schoolgirl outfit," end quote. In other British news, after nearly a year of standing vacant, the seat of the Archbishop of Canterbury finally has a new occupant this week. And yeah, it's a female lesbian, because of course it is. But hey, At least she was born in England. I guess that's something, right? The new Archbishop, Sarah Mullally, says she plans to use her new position as the head of the worldwide Anglican Communion to promote abortion rights, heretical religions, sexual depravity, social hedonism, the wholesale breakdown of the traditional nuclear family, and everything else that one would naturally expect from someone who just got hired to work for a Labour Party government. And I'm sure we can all find broad ecumenical agreement in the idea that somewhere in the great beyond, King Henry VIII is smiling down fondly and saying, "Yep, by God, this is exactly why I broke away from the Roman Catholic Church." Meanwhile, back over here in the good old US of A, the rhinoceros-sized governor of Illinois and the double-digit IQ mayor of Chicago, who appear to take great pride in that once fair city having been reduced to a lawless dystopian hellscape and safe haven for criminals and terrorists, appear to be having great success with their efforts to foment vigilantism against federal agents attempting to perform their sworn duties in furtherance of something that we used to call law and order, but which elected Democrats now refer to as authoritarian fascist tyranny. Shots were fired yesterday morning in the Chicago suburb of Broadview after federal agents, in what officials are describing as a coordinated act of domestic terrorism, had their car rammed and boxed in by upwards of 10 vehicles, one of whose drivers then emerged with a semi-automatic weapon and began popping off shots like she was in an old-time Western movie. And yeah, it was a woman this time, which is a fun new development, I guess. The Saturday attack followed a Friday in which numerous federal personnel were violently assaulted in the same area and came after the female shooter and apparent ringleader had posted on social media, quote, "Hey, to all my gang, let's fuck these motherfuckers up. Don't let them take anyone," end quote. Doesn't it have such a lovely poetic quality to it? It really rolls off the tongue nicely, I think. Clearly the product of a very cultivated mind, probably educated at one of Illinois' finest centers of higher learning. And besides, nothing says I occupy the moral high ground like using your voice and your car and a Beretta 9mm to make your city safe for illegal alien child sex predators and drug pushers and armed robbers to continue operating with total impunity. It really warms the cockles of one's heart, doesn't it? According to a statement from Assistant Homeland Security Secretary Tricia McLaughlin, the Chicago Police Department was kind enough to assist by immediately abandoning the area and refusing to help secure the scene in the aftermath of the vehicular terrorist attack, as a result of which the attackers were able to flee unmolested, and the female shooter even drove herself to a local hospital to seek treatment for her multiple gunshot wounds, which probably wasn't the brightest move, sweetheart. Like, have you never seen a gangster movie before? You don't go to the freaking hospital when you just got shot in the act of committing a violent felony, is all I'm saying. You're supposed to know a crooked veterinarian somewhere who you can bribe to get treated on the down low. Everybody freaking knows that, you idiot. But I guess there is some small gratification to be had in the fact that she missed the agents she was shooting at, but they damn well hit her ass. Maybe there is something to be said for formal government training in firearm tactics. Now, we still don't know the name of the shooter. Well, we might know it by now, but we didn't know it when I was writing this. But we do know she has been apprehended because, of course, she was stupid enough to go to the hospital, along with one of her numerous accomplices. And we know she has an approximately 100% chance of now dying in a federal prison. And it couldn't happen to a nicer lady. So enjoy your gunshot wounds, bitch. On behalf of all of us here at the WPWWWU, we really hope they are quite painful and debilitating. We also don't have any confirmation of which social media platform it was where the shooter posted her very specific terrorist threat, but hopefully, when the government shutdown ends and the social media CEOs go up to Capitol Hill to appear before the House Judiciary Committee, as they were previously scheduled to do the day after tomorrow, that platform's CEO will have a chance to explain how issuing threats of violence against federal agents comports with that particular site's terms of service. I am sure the members of the committee, the Republican members at least, look eagerly forward to hearing that explanation. As for the Democrat members, I'm guessing they will probably frame the incident as racist white cops shooting an innocent woman of color female motorist. In fact, I think I can probably guarantee it. In fact, I've never been quite more certain of anything in my life. And speaking of the government shutdown, did you know there's a government shutdown? Or did you just sort of shrug and forget about it and go on with your daily life like most normal people? Now, you might not think there is much of an overlap between the government shutdown and the seditious insurrections being staged in response to the immigration enforcement actions in Chicago and Portland and elsewhere. But there actually is a lot of overlap because they both strike directly at the heart of what Democrats sought to achieve with their Open Borders project. As we know, the House already passed the continuing resolution saying, let's keep the federal spending at 2024 Biden levels for another 7 weeks through the end of the fiscal year while we negotiate a new year-long spending agreement. But over on the Senate side, certain vulnerable Democrats who are up for re-election next year and are living in fear of a primary challenge from their left flank, and I'm looking right at you, crying Chuck Schumer, they decided, nope, we are not playing ball. We want $1.5 trillion in additional woke progressive grab bag goodies, including $200 billion for free healthcare for illegal aliens, or we are shutting the government down, by God. And obviously, they knew they were going to get laughed out of the room for suggesting such a patently absurd thing, but bear in mind, this is all purely performative. And you know why? You know what actually keeps the Democrats tossing and turning in the middle of the night? It's the fact that 1.6 million illegal aliens have already voluntarily self-deported since the 20th of January, an average of 6,255 self-deportations per day, a number which doesn't include those that have been forcibly removed, which is over 100,000 by itself. So the long and short of it is, with the border having been locked down tighter than a gnat's ass, there are at least 1.75 million fewer illegal aliens residing in the United States today than there were when President Trump reassumed office. And as we also know, the whole purpose of the Democrat Open Borders project was not so much for illegal aliens to vote fraudulently in our elections, although that is a nice, fun side benefit. The actual purpose was to get as many people over the border as possible, cram them into the big Democrat cities in their tens of thousands, get them counted in the census, and create an artificial margin in the House of Representatives of 25 or 26 unassailably safe Democrat seats. In other words, if you get to the end of this year and there are 2 or 2.5 million fewer illegals in the country, and there is a new census taken, as we know President Trump wants to do, a significant portion of those safe Democrat seats, well, they are going to cease to exist. So shutting down the government is a desperate roll of the dice by a party that is in a total panic, that sees their well-laid plan to rig the game collapsing right before their eyes, to dangle the carrot of free healthcare in a desperate bid to stop the self-deportation outflow. And what you can't achieve by the dangling of a carrot, you try to achieve through brute force violent insurrection, by doing every possible thing to interdict and interfere with immigration enforcement operations in cities like Chicago and Portland. Because it's not just illegal aliens that are leaving those cities and being removed from them by the bushel fucking basket. It is also normal, decent citizens who no longer wish to live in a lawless wasteland. And they are not moving to other Democrat states and Democrat cities. They are mostly moving to places like Texas and Florida and Tennessee. So the Democrats are potentially looking at a real bloodbath in the midterms next year. And it's not just because they continue to cling to the wrong side of every 80-20 issue on the political landscape. It is also because they are hemorrhaging population in all of their stronghold regions. And if they think it's a problem that they can gerrymander their way out of, they are very badly mistaken in that belief. And on that optimistic, uplifting note, this has been the WPWWWU for the 5th of October, 2025. I now transmit you into the care of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co-host, the one and only your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius. And tonight we're going to have a little bit of a powwow on a couple of few details what's been going down in the world today. But before I get to that, I would like to welcome back the Carnal Conservative. He's been missing for a while. See, he got locked in the YouTube basement for like 3 years. 2 years, maybe. And
Welcome
he's
back, my good friend. Glad to have you.
Right? Absolutely. And I just don't want to let that sneak by without being said. One of the very earliest interviews I did on my channel, and they muted him about a week after I did the interview, and it always stuck in my craw. But we're going to go over a couple of details. We've got the electronic ID in Britain. We've got violence to just pick and choose from across the world. I mean, what type of show would you like to have? Last week we talked about.
I guess it really is true that they did restore some people's channels and indeed restore all of their old content. We might have read it a little bit wrong when they first said everybody can come back, and then everybody came back, and they mostly rebanned all of the more prominent, bigger channels, and then they said, no, we didn't say we were bringing everybody back just all willy-nilly all at once. We said we were going to offer a pathway for people to come back. So, that gave them a little rhetorical exit strategy to where they could still reban all the people they wanted to reban. But it is great to have the carnal conservative back.
Absolutely.
And to answer your question, I don't know what kind of show I want to have. Let's just talk about stuff and see if the people like it.
All right, let's start with the whole Britain thing, because that's been on my mind recently.
Matters are coming to a head in the jolly old Islamic Republic of Britainistan.
They do seem to be becoming more and more of a pressure cooker. I don't know where this is going to go. I wonder if they're going to be able to float this concept of, if we had a electronic ID, then we could keep all of the immigrants out of the country. No, sir. With an electronic ID, you can create the two-tier system that they're trying to put into place. What's up, North?
And a horrifying thing to consider is that the electronic ID thing probably isn't in the half dozen most terrifying things that have come out of Sir Keir Starmer's mouth in the last week or two.
Oh wow! Some of the things.
I don't know how many of you all have seen the speech that he gave at the Labour Party conference on Monday this week. I did do a video about it the other day, so I won't repeat myself too excessively. But I think I described it as the most horrifying speech that has ever been given by a head of government in a nation that is supposed to be a Western liberal democracy. This is. There are a few ways to interpret some of these quotes, except that he is actually threatening to sick the army on people who oppose his open borders project. And we might arrive at a situation where King Charles dissolving Parliament is the only thing that can save his people from his army sending his government sending his army after them. And what a thing to consider that is.
Okay, hypothetically speaking, and I'm going out on a limb on this one, but what happens if Parliament orders the army in and the king orders them to stand down?
Nobody knows, because that is when your country has no written charter and your constitution is just a dense tangle of various acts and traditions and precedents that have been undertaken over the course of many centuries. There are some cases where you don't know what's going to happen when you do a thing unless you actually do the thing. Now, specifically, the royal prerogative to dissolve Parliament was actually done away with back in 2011. And I forget the name of the act, but it was brought back in 2022 with a different act that undid the first act. And you see us getting deeply into the weeds already. But theoretically, at least, the king still has the authority to unilaterally dissolve the Parliament by royal decree, which means if he issues that decree, then the current Parliament ceases to exist, and nobody in it is a member of Parliament anymore. And once that happens, you can't seat a new Parliament without a state opening of Parliament, for which you require the presence of the monarch or the monarch's designated deputy. So,
Lord Protector, as it were.
And
right?
It's funny you should bring up the specter of Oliver Cromwell, because 396 years ago, a different king named Charles, the first King Charles, he also dissolved Parliament because he wanted to rule as an absolute autocrat. And we might have the most ironic of all historic role reversals here, where the current Prime Minister of Britain, himself seeking to rule as something resembling an absolute autocrat, might have another king named Charles as the only man who can stand in his way of doing that.
But does he have the grits? Does that man have the spine? You know, not so long ago.
I tend to doubt it. And
I heard a little rumor that he might be praying 6 times a day nowadays.
It certainly wouldn't surprise me, because if you didn't know anything about Great Britain and you just looked at the current state of their society and culture, would you ever guess in a million years that they had a Christian state religion?
Let's look at it from an exterior perspective. I'm an alien in my rocket ship of human bone and skin flying through the space, and I show up and I pick London. And I go down and I pick up a random guy out of London and I take him back to my planet as a representation of all Brits everywhere. It would look like the BBC.
Oh yeah. Yes. And he would be able to regale his hosts with the story of how if you wave a British flag in the middle of the British capital and are surrounded by a mob of angry Muslims waving Palestine and ISIS flags, the cops will arrest you for waving the British flag, because that's where we are now.
Yeah,
you're causing a bit of public disorder. We can't have public disorder. You're inflaming the tensions in the community, you see.
It seems like every British cop spends all day just policing thought crime now, and that at least 70% of them are little 112-pound girls with ponytails.
Right. Or used to be girls. And they've got a flat top.
And or occasionally you will see like a pudgy neck-bearded incel type. But yes. It's one of those two things. Oh, and sometimes they're working together as partners, but they are always harassing the people who are trying to wave the flag of their own country in their own country, because
you can't piss off the Muslims. That's not allowed. You can't do that.
You know, when I think back to history of Britain, they kind of did the same thing with the Vikings, come to think of it. I mean,
that was a fun period, wasn't it?
Sure, but it's an equivalent period of like terroristic threats and crime, right? I mean, Vikings would just show up and live in a place for a couple of weeks and rob everybody blind and leave. And then they gave them their own land there.
And so when Edward the Confessor dies in early 1066, you've got 3 claimants to the throne after that. You've got the eldest son of Edward the Confessor, and you've got Harold Godwinson, the bearded badass Viking lord, blowing in from the north, trying to claim the kingdom for himself. And of course, you've got William the Conqueror coming across the channel from Normandy. So, and it was a pretty closely run thing whether the Norman conquest was actually going to succeed. So, I mean, what if the Vikings had prevailed and the Norman conquest had failed? How would today's Britain look differently? Because I'm guessing it would be rather starkly different, because after you had what, 500 years of Norman rule after the Norman conquest. So
yeah,
you got a hell of a lot of French culture implanted over there.
There is, and a whole lot of like love-hate relationship that goes on there that just would not have been a thing ever. And in fact, I would make the argument that the Vikings would hold it for maybe a generation, call it 50 years. And the following Norman conquest would have come across, but whether it was Norman, German, Spanish, Italian, whatever it was, would have rolled in there and took it after that.
And you raise a good point, because the Vikings were very good at, shock and awe, coming in with raiding parties and claiming pieces of territory temporarily, but they always tended to fuck off and go back to Norway eventually. They weren't all that great at gaining and holding power as much as the Normans turned out to be. So right. And maybe it would have just been wound up being 1,000-year anarchy. I mean, I guess there's no possible way of knowing.
No, there's not. But looking at the politics of, say, the Norman failure of the Norman conquest, you're talking about an almost complete decimation of the French population and largely the European population in that region. because
Yep.
Normandy was huge at the time. And so, like I said, the Vikings would hold it for a generation at the longest, because that's how long it would take to raise up enough sons to go take it.
And it really wound up being the Normans who sowed the seeds of what became the English and later British class structure, because they built castles unto themselves, which were self-contained communities unto themselves, and they all spent hundreds of years still speaking French as their first language. I think Henry VII was probably the first English king who spoke English as his native language. I mean, and that was many centuries later, but that's how insular the Norman aristocracy was, you know, cloistered in their castles and keeping to themselves. And they didn't really, when they needed the peasantry, they would go and tell them what to do. But yeah, it's not until the later Middle Ages, almost the Renaissance, that English actually becomes the de facto language of England. And you still see vestiges of Norman French contained in some of the older British legal statutes, which gives you an idea of how ingrained that all became, and how French was the language of not just the courts, but of the entire aristocracy and noble class and upper classes.
I would kind of make the argument that it was French and French Latin. Not like classic Latin, but the Latin as used by the French.
Yes, it's kind of it's Norman French, but it is sort of infused with the Latin of the Roman Catholic Church, inevitably.
Right. So let's look at this from the English side of things. England isn't exactly England yet, right? It's a disparate series of kingdoms that are all kind of vying for supremacy constantly. The Vikings show up. The Norman conquest fails. They've already ceded a certain amount of territory to the Vikings, but rather than having them routed and killed, the Danelaws become a foothold for the Vikings. It becomes the legitimate beachhead I think it was intended to be. And from that point, do the Vikings do a war of like genocidal proportions, or do they just basically try to rule by like mandate of heaven type? And what did the capitalists do?
Do they decide they are just going to be content with ruling over the Midlands? Or the other possibilities are they turn south and try to take London and the southern portion of the island, or they could turn north and try to invade Scotland, which probably wouldn't go all that well, knowing what we know about the Scots. But there's several different ways that could all go.
Sorry, I got a sick kid. Hold on.
Oh, you're fine. Those bastard Vikings will take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom.
Right.
We're a bit early to be saying that.
With no Longshanks on the throne, that changes that entire thing. What did they do with the Scots? Did they care about the Irish?
It's a good question. And as we know, in the actual event, after the Norman conquest succeeds, it still takes them some further centuries to fully subdue the north of England, and even be able to contemplate trying to do a Scottish conquest, which is, you know, you wind up in the period of Longshanks and Wallace before that even becomes a practicable possibility, which is 13th century. Yeah.
Okay. So
a couple 250 years just for the Normans to subdue and pacify the whole of England and start to have territorial ambitions beyond that.
Right. They build a ship. Essentially.
A big long son of a bitch of a ship.
Right. Okay, so let's take a look at the Scotch issue, right? You've got the Scotch. What's up, Mike 23? Welcome in. You got the Scotch that you issue up there. I do not believe that at the time of the Viking invasion, there was any chance of the Vikings actually subduing the Scots. I think if they turn north from the Danelaws and try to go Scottish first, they fail immediately, and history continues as it has happened. Right.
Right. And the the Danes, the Vikings, whatever you want to call them, they always did their best fighting when they were still within eye shot of the sea. You get them too far inland, and then their fighting effectiveness starts to diminish in a pretty big hurry.
I don't know though, dude. There's a certain amount of suggestion that the Rus may have been sourced from the Norse, and if that's the case, I mean, because the founding of Russia based off of the Rus basically say that they came from the north with their boats and sailed as far up the Volga as they could, and then hauled their fucking boats further in order to establish the city.
And they were really the only seafaring people during that period who could have come from the north, who
regularly hauled their boats across like freaking mountains and shit, like on the daily.
Oh yeah, they were good at fording. That's for damn sure.
They would fully disassemble one of their clinker-built boats, pack that fucker over a mountain pass, and put it back together on the other side. Or
it would still be watertight.
My personal favorite is they say fuck all of that, and they just stick wheels on the goddamn thing and haul that fucker manly over the fucking pass. That shit is amazing to me.
Yep. Yeah.
It was Rollo that did that one.
Yeah. Theodore Roosevelt can tell you about some of that with his journey down the River of Doubt, journey that almost claimed his life in 1915, I believe it was. Yeah, they spent a lot of that journey carrying their damn canoes around Whitewater Rapids, and nobody had very much fun. Plus you got the natives shooting arrows at you and fun shit like that too.
Yeah. Okay, so they don't go for Scotland to start with. So they ensconce in the Danelaws and they venture out and take Northumbria. Okay, successfully taking the castles. Does it do them any good? Do the English follow Viking rule at that point? Are they now subject to the Jarl?
I think I think there would be more trouble pacifying and subduing England than the Normans had, because the Vikings had no castle building tradition to speak of, at least not one that resembled what the Normans were capable of doing. They were building in stone when the Danes and the Vikings were still building, wooden Motte and Bailey forts, which are obviously far more impregnable than a stone castle is. I mean, the freaking Tower of London still stands today, built by William the Conqueror. So that tells you what the Norman invaders were capable of building.
That's true. They did bring the European tradition of castle building.
Yep.
And you're right. They don't take Northumbrian castles. They take Northumbrian Motte and Baileys because the castles weren't built yet. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have to wipe everything that you know off the board and start from scratch.
Essentially, the Norman conquest takes place. They just kill a bunch of fucking Vikings instead.
Yeah, seriously.
No, I can buy that. That actually makes sense, because if you can't take Scotland and you can't hold Northumbria from the Danelaws, then you don't have England.
No, you don't. You might have a little portion of the Midlands at best, I would say.
And I give it 18 months before you have 3 separate armies on your front doorstep.
Exactly. And if you only, even if you hold a portion of the Midlands all the way from the North Sea to the Sea of Ireland,
yeah.
If you don't have impregnable stone fortresses of the types that the Normans built in the actual event, you are going to have armies on your doorstep, like you say, from the north and the south, and possibly also from the sea. If there are other Vikings that want to come and displace you, I mean, yeah, you might be taking it from 3 sides. The Irish might be coming at you too. Who the hell knows? Actually,
I'm kind of making an assumption here that this verdant green land that is an obvious improvement over the Norse conditions of the time period, because we're heading into the little ice age and things are fixing to get a lot worse. It's part of the reason why the Vikings kind of started dropping off around this period.
They were sweet summer children,
basically. That being said, okay, they move into North England. The entire Norse pantheon actually unites behind them. They reinforce them and can man the first Motte and Bailey. I submit that's as far as they make it.
I think I don't disagree with that assessment.
The reason I say that is because all of the people that are ruling at that point in time are family members. And when you show up and whack a family member, they get over all their petty squabbles pretty fucking quick. They turn and look at the meanest guy in all three courts and go, send Andre the Black over there with everybody.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of that scene out of The Professional when he's like, bring me everybody. And he's like, everybody? And he just screams everybody into the phone. Same scene.
Another thing you have to consider that comes to mind is that in addition to importing the continental European castle building tradition as it existed at the time, the Normans also imported the model of the line of succession that still prevails in English and British royalty right up to the present day, which was not the model that existed in England before the Norman conquest. You had a couple of dueling models. The Danish Viking model was that the father's lands were divided among however many sons he had, and the other model that you had in the southern portion of the island was that the king merely chose his successor, and he could choose whoever the hell he wanted. And that's why there was so much controversy when Edward the successor died, because all three of these guys showed up and said, he picked me to be the next guy. I swear to God, and I will fight you if you try to say otherwise. So that's where that War of the Three Kings all came from. It was because there was not a firm line of succession that said, you, the eldest son, you inherit the kingdom, period. End of story. And I think that's another area where the Norman conquest brought a mode of stability that otherwise might never have existed for many, many, many centuries.
Would you accept the statement that the Norman conquest was by and large a byproduct of Charlemagne's efforts?
Most things that happened in Europe after the 9th century can be can be categorized as post-Charlemagnic, I think. So yes.
Well, I'm not just saying post-Charlemagnic. I'm saying that the empire that he ensconced, right?
Yeah.
Later, after a few losses and some other things and some breakups, became the Norman Empire that we know. I mean, it wasn't the same empire, but at the same time, there was a lot of the tactics and methodology and militarily speaking.
And ultimately, it became the Holy Roman Empire that persisted all the way into the early 19th century.
Right, but then even when you bring in the Holy Roman Empire, inside of the Holy Roman Empire, there was an awful lot of jockeying for position and land holdings and successions.
Oh yeah, you had a hell of a lot of separate kingdoms falling under the suzerainty of that emperor. So, and yeah, it didn't prevent them from warring and quibbling with each other.
Further caveat, they successfully take the entire island of Britain and hold it for a generation, right? So the Norman conquest doesn't happen then, but there's not the massive loss of life you would expect. The following generation, it's not William the Conqueror, it's Charlie the Conqueror, or what the fuck ever. He shows up with the entire weight of the Norman Empire behind him to a fully fortified and partially naturalized Viking citizenry, second generation. They've lived in a castle, or at least a motte and belly, their whole life. They know how to defend the place. They've been properly. What happens then? Does the warrior spirit of the Vikings change anything in that? Or is the technology and methodology of the Norman conquerors just that much greater?
I think the technology of the Normans probably overcomes the badass masculine fighting spirit of the Vikings, as technology usually does. That would be my inclination.
And I would carry some of the procedural stuff that they do, like the way they go about setting up camps and the way they bring in like all the people being armored in a very regulated and forthright way. This isn't something that Vikings are renowned for. Everybody kind of does their own thing when it comes to armor. Uniforms aren't a big deal. And so there's automatically going to be a bit of a loss of cohesion and all that. individual glory is a big deal for Vikings, not.
Well, yeah, and they brought a model of military precision and military engineering by which they were able to subdue, most of the entire island with a vastly outnumbered force. I think William the Conqueror only landed with a couple thousand men, but he still pulled the thing off, which I think is the most powerful testament to the technological advantage that he brought with him.
Right. But I mean, I think he did reinforce a couple of times, but it wasn't a major reinforcement. It was just some assholes that were late, basically. They're like, we were still trying to get our breaches up. Why'd y'all go without us?
And obviously in those days, when you go down the road and conquer one town, after you pick up troops along the way, as it looks more likely that you're going to complete the conquest. People want to be on your side when it looks like you're going to win, because if you're on his side, then he's going to give you stuff after he's on the throne. So your force, that's a force multiplier, just in the same way as bringing more Normans across the channel is.
That's true. That's very true. Okay, so I think we've come to the conclusion that there is no viable future for a Viking takeover of England. Next week we'll discuss Ireland.
Yeah. And the next question is, how do you defeat today's Muslim invader?
Serve pork.
And does the Prime Minister want the leader of the opposition party to be killed? Because it sure sounds like he does. I mean,
it's interesting.
If I was Nigel Farage, I would be feeling kind of freaked out right now.
I'd be calling my rednecks in the hinterlands to get me one of them armored trucks souped up.
Yeah, and because it's just the same set of rhetorical games. He's a Nazi, he's a fascist, he's a racist, and of course those things are only being said because the other guy is leading in the polls, and this is what leftists do when they see a potential political threat by which they might be defeated in the next election. Then you just start throwing those pejoratives out there. He's a this, he's a that, he's an istophobe, he's a thisist and a thatist.
I'm just so tired of it. That you remember we had a conversation about the whole fatigue concept and how people were trying to apply it along racial lines, and I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is not a racial thing. Don't let them do that to you folks. That is a gaslight of the highest order. This is victimhood fatigue. We are sick and tired of the people who cry bully their way into every single environment and just ruin it. They just ruin it. They come into it and then they divide everybody into their own little boxes, and you have to identify as they identify you. And if you don't do that, you're a phobe or an ist, or you're not playing along, or you're not a communist enough, or whatever it is they want to call you. And I'm so sick and tired of it. You're so sick and tired of it. And so are 90% of the people that are out there today.
You either go along with our program, or you are a reprehensible human being who doesn't deserve to remain alive. And there's not a whole lot of room for honest dialogue in a model like that. When it's either you agree with everything I think, or I will kill you. And that's pretty much where we are now.
Unperson you, and then it is okay to slaughter animals.
Exactly.
That's where we're at.
And that is the point B that you ultimately, inevitably arrive at when you start from the point A of your words are violence. When you start out, 7, 8, 9 years ago, the first time some transgender maniac said, if you use the wrong pronouns, you're doing violence on me, then the implicit threat in that assertion is that if your words are violence, then I'm allowed to do actual violence back upon you. And we have traveled that entire road from that point A to this point B, and now people are actually being killed by it. And that's a serious problem.
And you add in the level of psychoanalysis the most recent generation has had, and you've got to wonder how much of the program it was to have this happen. Most of your psychology people are attached to the schools.
And that is what I kept thinking as I was watching the 2 chapters of the Stephen Crowder Change My Mind most recent installment, which he just started doing again. For those who don't know, he stopped doing it for a long time because the threats and the violence just got to be too much to bear. And then Charlie Kirk sort of picked up his baton and started doing a similar thing, but with a slightly different model. He called it "Prove Me Wrong" instead of "Change My Mind," and used a slightly more adversarial model. But as I think he was at Southern Methodist. Crowder was this time, because that was the place where he did the very first "Change My Mind" back 8 or 9 years ago, or whenever it was. And I am listening to these people, these young people on a university campus, who just refuse to be disabused of any aspect of the woke leftist project, who refuse to even contemplate that the ideas they have had pumped into their heads are not 100% unassailably correct. And I thought this most of all when, during the second young lady on the first chapter, when she actually said with a straight face that Karl Marx and Mao Zedong were right-wing conservatives. She actually said that. I am not making this up.
I am straight up trying to find that. That was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah. Because she simply operates under a worldview that says everybody who does bad things is a conservative, and everybody who does good things is a liberal. And that's all the thinking all the thinking that's required. And imagine being in a place that is supposed to be a center of higher learning and having that kind of a bifurcated, nonsensical worldview pumped into your head by the people who are supposed to be teaching you how to think critically. And the amount of damage that has been done to young people by the universities is absolutely incalculable, in my judgment.
Thank you, Kissy May, for the $10. That's absolutely amazing. You should thank her.
Thanks very much indeed. Let me know what kind of song and dance you want me to do.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Or if you wish to do a subject change and have us talk about something else, then we will do that, because that's what happens when you send a $10 super chat. You get to run the show.
Congratulations. Pick a subject there. But until then, I've got the second young lady, the one that looks like she wanted to curb stomp. What was the chick's name that wrote Harry Potter?
Oh, J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling, yeah. She's got the glasses and everything, right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Wrong hole. Well, that's what she said.
Violence as a form of intimidation or coercion. It seems to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not disagreeing with the idea, the uptick that there is an increase in political violence from the quote-unquote left. You're just not sure if you define them as left?
Partially, yeah. I just don't necessarily want to just assign political violence or terrorism directly to the left, because we see political violence across the world in forms of autocratic or conservative ideologies. So maybe China is a really good example.
The Chi-Coms are right-wing conservatives, y'all. You heard it here first. Mao Zedong, Republican demigod.
That woman just said with a full-on, non-ironically, at the CCP, stop me if you've heard this one. I'm getting the link right now. Just give me a second there, Mike. I got you.
I got it.
It just took a second, bro. It's kind of hard to do things while laughing. Skadoosh. Bam.
Yeah, China was her first example, and then her second example is better when she cites Karl Marx. Again, not making this up.
Leftist violence?
Of leftist violence, especially. Or, well, no, autocratic and conservative violence.
China would be conservative?
I would believe so, because they're an autocracy. So they have to practice conservative ideologies to...
She thinks conservatism just means every bad thing that I don't like that has ever been done in history.
That's exactly what she thinks.
And she learned this at the university from her professors. And
exactly,
for the low price of $50,000 or $60,000 a year.
Nice. Oh my God, she paid for that education. So her father paid for that education.
Might have had to take out a second mortgage to pay for that education. That just drilled a big giant hole through her intellect.
Obtain. They can't liberate their people. That's what the left is. That's what liberation is.
Well, I don't know how familiar you are with the CCP, but they're communist, and they.
he is so superhumanly patient with her in a way that I could never manage.
Look at the level of concern this man has for this woman's thought process, because I feel like, I mean, look at him.
I don't know how familiar you are with
it's redawning on him why he needs to do things like this, because right. This is how bad it's gotten.
A fresh hell. What about?
Yeah.
Oh God.
You say, my God, things have actually got worse since I stopped doing this. What the hell?
Right, and he's like seriously contemplating how he's going to break it to her. That's
yeah, he's like, God, how do I put this gently? Is there any gentle way to put this?
Oh wow!
But they're communist, and they did so under the guise of liberating people, and then of course you don't actually have any democratically held elections again. So they are communist. They've done so to liberate people, namely from the decadence, the quote unquote shackles of the Western world. I'm just.
The shackles of prosperity.
Yeah, that's the interpretation I always get from it. Communist pig dogs. I mean, capitalist pig dogs.
The shackles of eating every day.
Right, that chicken in every pot, a steak on every grill. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I guess flummoxed as to how you would define communist China, the Communist Chinese Party, as right-wing.
Well, because when Marx wrote his communist ideologies, it was conservative-based. He didn't enjoy it.
What is happening right now? When Karl Marx wrote his communist ideology, it was conservative-based. She goes from Mao straight to Karl Marx as her examples of right-wing thinking.
Oh wow!
What do you even say about that?
She votes,
and she votes absolutely, and that's the terrifying part.
Based, she's a conservative.
Races. He wanted to eliminate races.
What does it have to do with conservatism?
It has to do with human rights, because conservatism isn't looking to liberate people from or define human rights. It's looking to remove human rights.
Conservatism is looking to remove human rights.
Citation.
So, and again, she just goes right down the line saying, if it's a thing I like, then conservatives are against it. That is her entire worldview. I would love to know what her major is.
I bet she's a political science major, and I bet you someone told her that she was left-wing, right? But no, you know what I mean? Told her what to think. Yeah. Someone like her dad, her mom, somebody was like, well, those people really don't think properly. They haven't been educated. We think properly, right?
And somehow she imagined in her mind that she was well-equipped enough intellectually to go up here and have this conversation on camera, which is another kind of astounding layer of this whole thing.
Poli-sci gender studies, bet you.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong. You're probably not wrong.
She won't be able to read the diploma. There's no way she'll be able to read the diploma.
Yeah, not a chance.
Smutty magazines, man.
Mom, will you read my diploma to me again?
I don't know how I graduated from Harvard.
The beliefs of the state and conserving the beliefs of elitism.
Okay, so what if your premise is flawed? So what if conservatism, and I understand, by the way, I agree with you, it means different things across. For example, conservative in the UK. In Canada, you're basically a liberal or a liberal separatist. There's no real conservative party.
He's right.
And in Australia, the Conservative Party is actually named the Liberal Party. Because you've got the Labour Party and the Liberal Party. So yeah, we've got lots of pretty serious problems with our major political parties in the Anglosphere. We actually might have it not as bad as some of the others, as depressing as that is.
Oh, good Lord.
But in the United States, it's not about conserving the state. As a matter of fact, our Constitution is very unique in that it said the state doesn't grant any rights. So it's preserving the Constitution where you are granted unalienable rights, meaning birthrights by God. And the state only serves to recognize those rights and protect them. And so if the state ever infringes upon the rights that are naturally yours by birthright.
But who assigned natural rights?
Well, that's
we the people of the United States, in order to form, just do it. Just read it to her, dude.
It is another real problem that the modern left has, particularly the younger demographic of the modern left. They just cannot get their heads around the idea that your rights are not granted by the state and the government, that your rights exist by virtue of you existing. And it's not a difficult concept to understand, and you don't have to default to any theistic worldview in order to believe it. It doesn't matter why you exist or what or who your creator is. Your rights exist because you exist. That is what makes them human rights. And they just, even elected Democrats who swear an oath to the Constitution don't understand this, and they go on TV displaying their misunderstanding of it. They just do not get it. They think, well, the government exists to give you your rights. And what can be given by the government can be taken away by the government, and which is exactly why the framers of our republic didn't write it that way.
They did not write it. They were very careful with their words. That's why the thing sounds so freaking weird when you read it. It's because they did not want interpretation to be brought into this. If they had, they would have been vague, like the English charter.
Yeah, the only charter they have is still Magna Carta from 1215. So there you go.
She looks like a bunny rabbit being hunted by a fox to me.
And look at how condescending she looks. She thinks she is so much smarter than Steven Crowder is.
Well, no, it's not just Steven Crowder. She's smarter than any conservative.
Yes.
Just period. Just by dint of being herself.
Because she operates in the belief that conservatism means you just believe things that are wrong and bad. And that's all the thought that she wants to put into it.
Again, the founding fathers would be conservative, but natural rights being
Republican.
Well, this was before the Republican Party.
Am I correct?
This is the Republican Party.
Yeah.
But I'm just confused. So you would say that communist China, conservative?
I would say it's autocracy that uses conservative.
Okay, but how is that?
I know that there's sometimes nothing you can do but double face palm. When I was watching this morning, I double face palmed probably half a dozen times because sometimes you can't do anything else. You were just bowled over by not just the stupidity, but stupidity accompanied by smug self-satisfaction.
I listened to this while I was watching Halo, the first season of Halo again, so I can watch the second season with an unbroken brain pan, right? And so I listened to this, but I swear to God, my brain tuned this entire part of the conversation out. I don't take on absurdity well. Like, I don't onboard it if it's obvious absurdity. I just don't even unload that stuff. So, and still, I'm going to reiterate that it is impossible not to admire Steven Crowder for how graciously he is able to suffer fools in formats like this.
Because he doesn't suffer when he's doing his regular show in his studio. He does not suffer fools easily. He attacks foolishness, as bluntly as it should be attacked. But when he goes to do things like this, he goes absolutely out of his way to not act as insulting toward his interlocutor as they are acting toward him, which I think is a quite an admirable thing.
I just can't believe he didn't facepalm there.
He's got to be fighting the urge so hard. Are you kidding me?
That's why he has a toothpick in his mouth and a pen in his hand, is so he won't get too close to the eyes.
He's sitting there thinking, I am actually talking to a grown adult who thinks Mao Zedong and Karl Marx were right-wing conservatives. That's a real thing that's happening in my life right now.
Yes, he's letting her make a fool of herself. That is exactly the point I was fixing to bring up. He is allowing the left to speak their mind, and their mind is twisted and psychotic, and it becomes immediately obvious when you try to see the mental gymnastics these people utilize to justify their logic.
And oftentimes it's more effective that way, to just sit back and say nothing and let them, dole out as much rope as they need to intellectually hang themselves.
Exactly. So let's watch them swing.
Conservative, for example, you say doing away with races. How is that conservative?
It conserves their power over the state or over the nation.
So you believe that conservatives want the state to have more power?
I think that we define conservative beliefs by our Republican values. But conservatism across the globe looks very different.
Okay. Well, I agree that.
So she has two sets of goalposts, and she's willing to move them both.
Yeah, and I felt like right there she was just saying words.
She's trying to sound intelligent, and it's not working for her.
Yeah.
Because our Republican values, when speaking on a left-wing campus from a leftist perspective, and you literally just called the CCP a conservative stronghold.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost, sometimes it's almost Kamala Harris level word salad.
Oh, God, it's good.
Different parties, because there's also the Conservative Party, for example, whereas here it's the Republican Party. We're talking about conservatism in the United States. It seems to me that your presupposition is that conservatives, Republicans want more state control, want more government power, as opposed to the Democrat Party, liberals. Okay, that would apply over healthcare, what you can eat, what you can drive, taxes. They're more left, they're more liberal, more open-minded on the left with those policies. Okay, I would just disagree with that, considering if you just look at marginal.
Karl Marx, who sought to eradicate every traditional aspect of society that still existed in the middle of the 19th century. She's calling that guy a conservative because, well, he was bad, so he must be a conservative. It's 3-year-olds think this way. I'm 3-year-olds, dude.
Right? Oh my God. And she's gonna marry some nice conservative guy somewhere, and
she'll probably be in fucking Congress in 10 years.
Oh my God, stop it.
Tax rates, and you look at gun policy, you look at speech policy, you look at energy policy, what you can drive. But going back to political violence, you said you wouldn't want to ascribe the uptick that we both recognize, political violence to the left. What would be required for it to be ascribed to the left? What if they said it was? Like, what if someone's...
I would say, like, I'm looking at this globally.
Well, let's talk about here in the United States, because that's what we're discussing. Yeah. What I'm asking you is, what would be required if someone were to commit an act of political violence and you consider it on the left? What if they said it's because they're on the left? Would that count?
I wouldn't say so, no.
No.
I think if somebody is doing an act in towards the left, what side of the left and why? Because...
Thank you.
When Jimmy Kimmel goes on stage and says that Charlie Kirk's killer was a MAGA guy, these are the kind of people that believe him.
Yep. You just made a distinction that I have been trying to beat into other right-wing people out here to understand the distinction. Your enemies are not actually liberal. Your enemies are the progressive radical left, not the left. They're over there and they're flying the same flags, wearing the same clothes, about like skin suits. But an actual liberal is a reasonable individual, mostly.
Carnal conservative shoots and scores.
Yeah, he's a fucking boss. We need to ban all forms of birth weight.
Sorry. I'll put it back. There it is.
We need to ban all forms of birth control so women like this are kept barefoot and pregnant. Goddamn, dude. Oh, God.
She could have a perfectly happy life as a mother and a homemaker, and she wouldn't have to think about any of this stuff.
I mean, you're not wrong. She'd be out there feeding the chickens and playing with puppies.
Instead, she's going to be in fucking Congress in 10 years.
You're right. She is. I can see it on her face. Look at her. Or OnlyFans. It's 50-50, really. Or both.
Maybe both. Wouldn't be the first time.
What we refer to as the left is now a religion and ideology.
I would agree with that.
This is a sect.
It's a cult.
That was probably the most. That was probably the most insightful thing she says the whole time. Is that the left is a religion of ideology? So I guess even a blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then.
Broken watch is right twice a day. Okay, so if she's aware of this, then she's basically holding her own tent revival over here.
Yeah, something like that.
What's up, truth be told? Welcome in, brother. I don't know what to do with this girl. I don't even know where to start.
She is one of those people who leaves the university after 4 years far more stupid and ignorant than she was when she arrived. And then there are millions of her. Yep.
And it's because, well, no, we're not going to get into that.
Secular movement.
Secular humanism,
and, well, you can really say demonic too, because like a lot of those people are nuts. And to try to return back to their liberalist state, because in some ways, liberalists believe.
Did she say liberalist state?
Maybe she was trying to say state, or maybe she said, I don't know. Are we going like with some French Revolution rhetoric here? I feel like she's not smart enough to go to that kind of rhetoric.
I don't see Robespierre coming out of this woman's mouth.
Yeah, I don't have an educated guess on that one.
I'm gonna listen to it again.
Too, because like a lot of those people are nuts. And to try to return back to their liberalist state, because
liberalist state.
Liberalist state. Okay, that makes more sense. I'll go with that.
It does make a little more sense, but not much.
Yeah, not much.
It's not exactly redemption here.
In some ways, liberalists believe that they've been robbed of human rights. It's a radicalism of people that, honestly, if the conservatives, like maybe 20 years ago, started assigning themselves the idea of human rights or like, public policy and things like that, there would probably been a switch around for the conservative movement to be more actually the radical people.
Do you mean like the Civil Rights Act? Or like
Civil Rights
Emancipation Proclamation, freedom of speech policy, Section 230, Second Amendment. Do you mean those kinds of rights?
Those kinds.
She is drawing a complete blank on all of that. I bet you she thinks the Democrats did all of it.
Yeah, and I think it's more of that. I just need to say words, just words.
Political words, not just words.
Yeah. What leftist buzzwords can I vomit out right now that will make me sound smart? It works when I do it in class, so it should work here, right?
Right.
If the right had been spearheading those?
And probably a little bit more socialist ideas. But of course...
Well, it's not just change the definitions, right? Mm-hmm. What you can't do, or I would disagree with doing, is saying racist means conservative, because it doesn't, right? Most slaveholders would be Democrat, and I know we would talk about how the parties have switched. You can't say KKK equal, those would be largely Democrats. There's nothing conservative about racism. There's nothing.
Again, I think that we're
saying
Republican
that
parties and Democratic parties. When conservative,
that's what we're doing. We're discussing it here in the States.
Assignment of Republicans, because if you want to argue that Republicans were liberating people, wouldn't that constitute as a left nowadays?
Why would that be left?
I bet she doesn't know why the Republican Party was created in the first place. I bet she doesn't know the Republican Party was a single-issue pressure group that only sought to eradicate involuntary human servitude from this continent for all time. I bet she has no idea. I bet if you asked her, she would probably say Republicans did slavery. In fact, I would say there's a significantly non-zero chance of it.
She is a literist. She is taking the term liberal and applying it to liberator.
Yes.
And so anyone who liberates anyone is a liberal.
Which is the most facile form of surface level thinking. And again, this is the way toddlers think. And she thinks she's smart and educated.
Wow. Did we crack the code? I think we cracked the code. Let's see.
Because they're liberating people from slavery, and it's a Republican mindset. We don't.
No, I don't see how that would be left at all. As a matter of fact, I think your fundamental flaw that I would argue is this idea that the left is more concerned with individual liberty. That makes sense why you would ascribe conservatism to communism. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who agrees with you. But right now on the political violence, let me ask you this.
Karl Marx, he was a conservative.
Wanted to do away with the nuclear family, wanted to seize the means of production and distribution. I just won't agree with you that anything about that is conservative. The political violence, the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Using conservative with Republican ideals. And the Republican ideal is to protect the family. Somewhat.
Lord help us, shoots and scores. You know, she would be far more beneficial to society if she stopped trying to think about this stuff that's clearly over her head and focused more on her sandwich making skills.
I'm just saying, she's using her mouth wrong.
The political violence, the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Using conservative with Republican ideals. And the Republican ideal is to protect the family. In some ways you could say it's conservative.
Sure,
family,
yeah, conservative.
Again,
and
that is
Karl Marx wanted the state to be in charge of the family.
That is the American.
Right, and she goes back to her globalist position. 2 sets of field goals, and she'll move them where she needs to. Yeah, no.
Karl Marx, whom you used as an example of a paragon of conservatism.
Right, the CCP.
Yes. Mao and Karl, those good. I heard they used to hang out with Reagan and Barry Goldwater.
Absolutely based. Wow.
Perspective on conservatism.
Okay.
But the arrival of like what is liberalism, what is conservatism, we can't assign it to American Republican Party or Democratic Party because people hold left-leaning views in the Republican Party.
Sure.
We can say that Republicans want to liberate the world from war nowadays, at least with Donald Trump's administration, and that the Democratic Party wanted to do more war in, what was it, Bush's era? Right? So what is the confusion?
Well, did you say Bush was a Republican? But I would agree with you.
Maybe is it Clinton? Clinton was...
Yeah. I mean,
she doesn't know who started the wars in the early part of this century, probably around the time she was born, which should be a pretty good insight into her intellect. I mean, I assume she had to take history classes in high school, did she not? And she doesn't know whether Bush or Clinton started the wars. She has no freaking idea.
I almost want to listen to that again because I don't know what I just fucking heard.
Yeah, you might want to give it another play because that was wow.
Trump's administration, and that the Democratic Party wanted to do more war in, what was it, Bush's era? Right?
He thinks Bush was a Democrat.
Did you say Bush was a Republican? But I would agree with you.
Maybe is it Clinton? Clinton was...
Yeah.
Democrat.
I mean, I will say this. All presidents have been more pro-war than how they campaigned, with the exception of Donald Trump. I think we would agree on that. Political violence. The assassination of Charlie Kirk in cold blood. Would that be leftist political violence?
I think that was a Satanist.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Let's
Brooke.
get a grip on that. Wait. No, I heard this the other day, and I hadn't really had a good chance to go over that.
Really? You heard that?
I don't remember who it was. It was on some panel. I wasn't even actually, I was eating freaking Cheetos or some shit, watching a movie, sitting on a panel while they were arguing about something. And that came up, but they completely skipped over the top of it and just didn't want to talk about it. But what
Like she is challenged to say whether she thinks that act was leftist political violence, and she completely avoids the question by saying, "I think that was a Satanist," as if Satanist and leftist are antonyms and mutually exclusive. And I talk about self-delusion. That's what self-delusion looks like.
Well, I mean, she just believes labels. She gives them a label, and then that's the label that they've got. And they don't have any other labels because that's what labels are for, or for labeling you. But here's my challenge to them. And every single one of these people run into a major bulwark when they hit this. What if I don't accept your label of me? And furthermore, what if I decide I don't need to participate in your delusions and I don't accept your labels?
Yes, and I would add as a caveat to that, or a supplement. What if I don't see any purpose engaging in a dialogue with you if we can't even have a commonly understood definition of the terms we are using?
The left wing passing this shit off because the shooter was a Satanist, as if Has Been Hotel is a right wing entertainment. Come on, dude, you're killing me. Oh, we got to get him in here. I want to see you two bat it back and forth. I want to see y'all do the banter. We'll see.
The pithy banter.
The pithy banter. He can pith. I want him to get his mutton chops up a little bit better. And,
I love a good bit of pithing.
Right. We'll have a pithing contest. It'll be great. I don't know how much of this chick I'm going to be able to do, but let's give it another shot. We get
That's what she said.
All right, grit down, hunker down.
Running people over. He's a black supremacist who wanted to kill cops and white people. Would that be leftist political violence?
And he is a part of the BLM or black supremacy movement.
And would you not consider that among the left? Antifa, would that be considered among the left?
I think that they're assigning themselves a party to assimilate with, but that doesn't necessarily, it doesn't account for left.
She can't even say that the hard leftists that exist in the society are leftist. She can't even make herself do that.
Well, no, that's because she believes she is the left, and she's not violent. She's not angry. Yes. She's not. I mean, yes. She doesn't.
I am the left, and all the things I think are correct. So everybody who doesn't think the correct things must be on the right.
Absolutely.
Values, because the left is.
So let me ask you, because I don't want to waste too much time on this. How would you curb political violence? Right? The whole reason for crime statistics.
Oh no, I don't want to waste too much. It's the only purpose he's actually here. But he doesn't want to waste time on this.
I cannot believe the amount of time he gave to this chick and the chick before her. And the chick before her was fascinating in her own right, because she was less stupid and less ignorant, but she was. Look, there's no other way to say it. She displayed all of the standard traits that define females and don't define males. She wanted to be agreeable and nurturing and to build consensus, which is exactly the reason we didn't used to let women vote and go ahead and yell at me.
So I'm going to call these people Smarmalade, thanks to Eb's Bad World. Because if you see the look on this chick's face, and I got to admit, Steven Crowder's got a little Smarmalade going on too, because he's having to, in his brain, back all the way up to pre-Marx in order to lay the groundwork for the difference between the Republican and Democrat Party. And she is going to say, but we were discussing global issues.
Well, yeah, and she her ignorance runs so deep that we heard her kind of implicitly say just a few minutes ago that she thinks Republicans and Democrats existed during the founding of the country. Remember that part?
Right. Ain't no Tories and Whigs over here. Nope. What about those deists? Nothing about them. Never heard of them. Founding fathers? Never read the Federalist Papers, have you, chick?
How many signers of the Declaration do you think this girl could name?
One for certain, and it's because it's got the name cock in it.
I don't want to waste too much time on this. How would you curb political violence, right? The whole reason for crime statistics is a risk assessment to see who's most likely to be victimized and prevent it in the future. I get that you're in college, and I understand that things can be kind of nebulous or abstract, but there are real people dying, right? And some of them are people I've known sitting in this exact. Okay. So where is the violence coming from in the country right now when you take into account Charlie Kirk? I mean, what just happened here down the road at ICE, or Alvarado, I'm not sure how it's pronounced as well. We haven't gone more than 3 days in the last 3 weeks without significant acts of self-identified leftist terrorism. How would you curb it? If you're going to curb political violence, and it seems like you're not willing to say that anything is political within the paradigm as it's universally recognized, what would you do?
I think people need to get off social media. They're becoming radicalized to that.
Is it Blue Sky or Twitter, YouTube or Reddit? Is it?
I'm guessing Blue Sky.
I'm blaming OnlyFans.
Or OnlyFans, but yeah, she seems right in the sweet spot for Blue Sky. She is exactly the kind of person they're looking for.
Yep. I wonder if she has a MAPS style transgender flag on her wall.
And she's. I don't want to sound like I'm aping the body language ghost lady, but that's kind of a cue with the hand up on the face, creeping closer and closer to the mouth. That's a creeping loss of confidence in what you're saying and your how much you actually believe in it. And you can kind of tell in the slight furrowing of the brow that, oh my God, maybe I'm not as correct as I thought I was.
She was on point when she got here. You know, she'd have done better if she'd have unbuttoned 2 more buttons.
Agreed.
Okay.
How much time can you spend on TikTok, like cycling through the same, like, violent ideologies? Because conservatives can have.
I'm banned from TikTok because I said Xi Jinping has a small penis. So that's the Communist Party.
Instagram.
Oh, wow. And she just skips it. She didn't hear none of that. That
Oh, I know. Yeah, she just straight past it. And oh my God. Crowder shoots and scores.
Right? He's a comedian, folks. Keep it in mind.
As well.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah. I agree that social media can be very toxic, but we're seeing real
breaks off eye contact and everything.
Wave your magic wand and ban all social media.
Are you meaning in terms of like policies? Like if I had a seat in.
Well, we need to identify the problem. Where do you think the political violence is coming from more right now?
I think on a global scale.
In the United States.
Both.
In the United States.
In the United States, I can't speak on the United States because I don't think it's just the United States.
Oh my God. See, he pegged her down. He got her cornered, and she shifted from United States to globalist.
And it is the third time she has gone to that canard when she wasn't sure what to say. Well, I'm not thinking about the U.S. I'm thinking more globally, because she thinks it makes her sound cultured and erudite, and she's badly mistaken.
Yeah, no. I bet she's hell at trivia night.
No, but that's Jesus. So if you don't want to, that's okay. But I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate the disagreement respectfully. You're never going to get me to say that the Communist Chinese Party is right wing.
Well, of course you wouldn't. Like you represent the Conservative Party and the Republican Party. Well,
there's no Conservative Party here. I'm just conservative.
There are examples.
That is a fine point, sir. There is no Conservative Party in America. There are Republicans, Democrats. Neither of them are especially conservative. However, a large portion of the flyover states are.
Yes. And I mean, you know me, I always take issue with people who use Republican and conservative as synonyms, because they absolutely are not in any sense of the word. For quite a few decades now, we've had a hard left party and a slightly less leftist party. The Republicans have oriented their conservatism around the idea for quite a while now that if we just be 10% less liberal than the liberals, then that's conservative enough. And Trump was the only guy who came along and tried to redress that problem, and God bless him for it.
Right? I mean, and I'll reiterate the point that largely, as far as his fiscal policy is concerned, he ran on a mid-90s liberal platform and won the Republican nomination. So how conservative is the Republican Party? It's not.
Yeah, and I bet this girl has no idea that Trump was a registered Democrat until 2010. She would probably lose her shit if you told her that.
She'd tell you you're lying.
Yeah, probably so.
This woman, this beautiful young lady, is everything that Yuri Bezmenov warned us about.
Absolutely, that's an excellent call, and yeah, she should have every possible advantage in life. She is beautiful and well spoken, and her head is absolutely full of just toxic sludge. And as amusing as it is to make light of people's ignorance and foolishness, it's also quite depressing when people who should be capable of such good and useful things in life go to university when they probably shouldn't and get their heads filled with this horse shit.
Saint Yuri, bless him.
Oh yeah, Yuri had the whole thing figured out. He was ahead of his time.
Well, I mean, as I understand it, he helped plan it. And he spelled it out. I mean, it took.
So he was uniquely well positioned to tell everybody else how horrid it was.
Yeah. But it took 15 years longer for folks to notice than he expected.
Yep.
But that's just because Americans are dumber than he thought.
Oh yeah, and Orwell had it right too. He was off by about 40 years, but still had it right.
Exactly.
People who are carrying out things violently, but it is not just the leftist ideology. It is a religion to something greater. And that's what I just want to assign it, is that because, yeah, of course. And like I kind of already iterated my points, but.
No, and I think, yeah, and we would agree, Karl Marx loathed religion and wanted to replace it with the religion of the state.
Yeah.
And that's what we see from these leftists, but I appreciate you sitting down, Madison. Thank you very much. Are those furry pants? So that
they're furry pants or what?
Well, they're fur.
Pants.
They're bear pants. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Shoes that are very, very exclusive and rare.
Furry pants, exclusive.
Ezra Taft Benson shout out.
Right? Have you brought that up yet? That should be. Hold on. Where'd it go? I lost it. Yep, there it is. Right?
Yep.
I need to re-educate on myself on some of that. I recognize the reference. I don't recognize why I recognize the reference.
He was the prophet of the LDS church back in the 90s. And I'm only LDS by marriage, but I was always a fan of Benson.
Beast. Are we going to finish listening to his Fuzzy Pants? I don't want to. I really like Fuzzy Pants, so she's going to ruin it for me.
Yeah, she gets slightly offended that he calls them furry pants instead of bear pants, like he's supposed to know that. But
right?
I guess it's a fitting parting shot for how brilliantly she acquitted herself during that whole exchange.
I don't know. I'm a little bit upset with the whole thing because this individual is going to watch this later, knowing all of the things that she should have said, and then convince herself that she said them and took out Crowder.
And Stephen Crowder is an absolute saint for being able to sit there that whole time without ever bursting out laughing. He is a better man than I am.
She better be glad she's beautiful.
Oh yeah, yep.
Because
she needs to readjust her focus in life and go with the assets that she has, because her brain is not one of them.
If that had been a ham beast, I think he might have been a little more savage.
Yeah, that there was never anything wrong with the model that says, if you're a nice-looking, well-spoken woman, just find yourself a high-quality man and have his babies. It worked.
Children.
It worked for the entire human race for thousands of years. And there's, just because we decided to dispense with it 50 years ago doesn't mean that's smart.
She's a different monkey spazzing out over a different banana.
Indeed.
That's just too on point.
Queenbird shoots and scores. We've had a lot of shooting and scoring tonight in the chat.
We're going to have to whip out the participation trophies again, bro. It's getting too good around here.
I know.
We're going to have
to have a hell of a good audience.
We're going to have to make a emoji or something for them to give it out to each other and stuff. something. I don't know. We'll figure it
Yep.
out. So the Carnal Conservatives link is pinned in my chat. So y'all go sub to him. Maybe we can get some more of his content out. Hey, big boy, about time to do that thing.
Well, this was a good one tonight. Yeah, my compliments to the chat for a very outstanding performance. Carnal Conservative, it's good to see you back on YouTube. Everybody go subscribe to his channel. Check his stuff out. You won't be sorry. Have a great day and an edifying day after that, and a wonderful, superfluous week. Not superfluous, stupendous week. Getting my adjectives wrong. It must be getting late. We will see you next time, next Sunday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, just like we always do. Until then, see you later. Get off my lawn.
Give me the money. Give me the money.